Hello. Today we are starting the lesson comes under topic 15 system development section 15.3, that is agile approach. In the previous lessons for topic 15 we learned on project management under section 15.1, and also I did a separate lesson on how to fill a PERT diagram, and then we did 15.2 waterfall method, and today we are going to learn on agile approach, that is section 15.3. Yeah, as usual, I have added the screen capture from the Edexcel IT specification. This shows what are the areas they expect you to learn under topic 15, section 15.3. So, as per the spec, you need to know the concepts and features of agile approach and the phases of agile approach and activities that take place when we follow the agile method. Yeah, so let's start. Basically, agile project management is all about taking an iterative approach to handling software development projects. Instead of doing everything all at once and hoping for the best, you break things down into smaller chunks and work on them in cycles. The cool thing about agile is that it's all about keeping things moving. You're constantly putting out new releases and getting feedback from the customers along the way. It's like you're always tweaking and improving based on the experience. And teams that really get into agile see a lot of good benefits. Their development speed goes through the roof. They start collaborating like never before, and they become super adaptable to whatever the market throws at them. Let's see why how those changes are happening. Right. The agile methodology is a project management approach that involves breaking the project into phases and emphasizes continuous collaboration and improvements. Teams follow a cycle of activities such as planning, designing, developing, testing, deploying, reviewing, and then launching the software. Likewise, there are many cycles the team works until they get the full project, the full system done. Here I have shown the waterfall method and the agile approach together for ease of visual comparison and understanding. Uh, if you haven't watched the waterfall method lesson that I did earlier, you can go and watch that video. And I'm doing agile after the waterfall video. So as you can see, while waterfall methods fall through each phase only once, the agile approach goes through each phase once per iteration. If you also focus on the outcome and the size of its visual representation, equivalent to the size of the completed system or whole system scope. The final outcome we target for is the same size, but in agile approach, we releases an incrementally developed system as parts at the end of each iteration, so that the customer see interacts with the with and give feedback uh, time to time. So we are on track with the development, and we are ensure that we are developing what the customer really wants, because the customers after each iteration customer get to see what we have developed, whereas on the other hand the waterfall method, the customer see only the final outcome at the end. So there could be issues, there could be we might have developed a system that the customer was not required. So let's go through in detail. The number of iteration needed as well as the duration of a single iteration is the decision of the project team by considering the project citation, the complexity, the size of the project, and all that. Right. The key concepts of agile approach. The two main key concepts and features of agile approaches are interactive development and incremental approach. So the two main are, sorry, the iterative development and the incremental approach. Those are the two main key concepts of the agile approach. An important step of each iteration is to show the new software at the end of each iteration and collect customer feedback. I mentioned earlier also. So this gives a way to verify that what the project team built is what the customer really wants. The customer can request changes to the scope as well in their feedback, and the project team will adjust the next iteration to accommodate the new changes too. So it's agile and it's iterative development. So they have the freedom to get the feedback and work on those feedback in the next iteration. Uh, just like the waterfall method that we learn, agile approach also has 5 phases. So let's go through each phase. The 5 phases are requirements, plan, design, develop, and release. I mentioned previously that agile methods works in iterations, right? So for each of these iterations starts with the requirement phase. During the requirement phase, we take a part of the project, uh, and analyze the requirements and document uh, the requirement as user stories. A user story is a way of writing a requirement as if someone like a user of the system explain it to anyone of what that user wants to do with the system. For an example, let's say they are building an online clothes store. A user story could be, as a customer, I should be able to search for clothes based on my size. That's a user story. So in agile approach, the requirements they write as user stories, that the real life scenarios. Uh, Unlike in waterfall method, requirements phase does not try to look at all the requirements in a single go, but details adequate number of user stories to attempt in the current iteration. The second phase of agile approach is plan. First is requirements and the second one is plan. So in this phase, the team plans how they are going to translate the requirements into working software. Since they need to show a working software to customers at the end of the iteration, they plan how to structure the software for parts that are to be developed in within the iteration. So they take that part and uh, plan on how to develop that chunk of the project. Third phase is design. During this phase, designers develop solutions that meet the requirements, uh, create, modify the designs. It could be wireframe screens designed for a mobile application, as you can see on the screen. So they design how the web pages or the web application or how the system should look like, and they design the database systems, the back end and the front end UI scenarios, and they those are the deliverables that they are working at the design phase. And uh, during the third phase, which is the develop, designers hand off their specifications, the wireframes, the blueprint, or whatever that they design to the developers to build. So to accomplish this, developers create an implementation plan, collect any data or research needed for the programming parts, and then assign specific tasks, allocate the resources among the team. They might allocate the backend development for backend developers, and their database work for database engineers. So likewise, they create the task and assign those tasks to specific people. And then testing the software is done by the QA department, and automation testing is usually involved to speed up the whole testing and verification process. Developers also involved in writing developer test cases, so that they also need to have a deep understanding of the product. This is the fifth and the last phase of agile approach. Let's see what. Sorry, there was a skip of the video. Okay, so this is the fifth and the last phase of agile approach, which is the release. Here, after an iteration, the part of the developed system will be released to the customer. There will be bugs, defects found by the test teams, and also any issues raised by the customer. So these data will be collected and documented so that the development team can work on those issues or the requirement new features that is requested in the future iterations. Right. Now that we learned the phases of agile approach, let's see what benefits we get by following agile approach. First off, short delivery times. Yep, that's right. Like with Agile, we are talking about breaking down our projects into manageable chunks, which means we can get stuff out of the door quicker than uh, you can say in waterfall method. And who doesn't love seeing results sooner rather than later? There's more like flexibility for innovation. That's the name of the game with Agile. We are not shackled to a rigid plan carved in stone in like in waterfall. We can pivot, adapt, and innovate on the fly. It's like having a creative playground where we can experiment and explore new ideas without fear of being tied down, and we get customer feedback on the go. Agile is all about keeping those lines of communication wide open. We are constantly looping with our clients, gathering their thoughts and refining our approach based on their feedback. It's like having a built in feedback loop that keeps us on track and ensure that we are delivering exactly what our clients want. And speaking of delivering what our clients want, how about that just enough amount of feature request? With Agile, we are not drowning in a sea of endless requirements. We are focusing on what's essential for the immediate iteration. It's all about prioritizing and delivering value. Right. Disadvantages of Agile method. Hmm. Uncertainty for long term planning. Agile is all about adaptability and embracing change, which can be fantastic for short term goals. But however, when it comes to long term planning, things can get a bit murky. Predicting timelines and outcomes become more challenging when you are constantly adjusting course based on feedback and iteration, and also dependency on client availability. Agile relies heavily on constant collaboration and feedback from clients or the stakeholders. So while this can be lead to better outcomes, it also means that progress can be slowed down if clients are not readily available, or if there's a lack of clear direction from their end, and if they take time to give the feedback, we can't wait to start our next iteration and we still didn't get their feedback. So likewise there could be blocks that could happen, which will so that dependency on client availability is a disadvantage. And intensiveness. Agile requires a significant investment of time and resources from all parties involved, from frequent meetings and communication to the need for skilled agile practitioners. It can sometimes feel like a drain on resources, especially for smaller teams or organizations with limited bandwidth. You need scrum master, you need resources for each and every special task, and you have so many meetings uh, because you have customer meetings, and then all the team members are gathering for all the meetings. So there could be intensiveness because of agile, and then potential for scope creep as well, because while agile does provide mechanisms for handling changes in requirements, there's always the risk of scope creep. Without strict controls in place, projects can quickly spiral out of control as new features and requests are continuously added without proper prioritization. So there's this risk of scope creep. And then there's team burnout, the fast-paced nature of agile, which with its emphasis on short iterations, because iteration could run for a week or 2 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So it's packed, right? And it's fast paced. So getting constant feedback from the customers and working on them can sometimes lead to burnout among team members. There's the pressure to constantly deliver something that is working. So it's always a pressure, and the team to get the results out, team could burn out. And then lack of documentation. Agile encourages work in software over comprehensive documentation, which can be a double-edged sword. While it promotes a focus on delivering a tangible results, it can also lead to gaps in documentation and knowledge transfers, making it challenging for new team members to onboard for maintaining the system in the long run. So there could be requirement knowledge issues within the team, because due to lack of documentation. And then the resistance to change. Implementing agile often requires a cultural shift within organizations, which can be met with resistance from stakeholders. Changing mindsets and workflows can take time and effort. So these are the disadvantages of following the agile method. Right. Uh, let's see where agile is best used for. Agile method is best suited for projects with super tight deadlines, like you need to get it done ASAP. Then there are those projects that are just really complex. Agile is breaking down the systems to small parts, so it makes easy to understand and develop. And then there's the new stuff, the projects where you're basically paving the way, doing something no one is really done before, especially for tech startups. And then there are those projects where the requirements are not precise and vague, like you start building and suddenly everyone is like, hey, can we change this and that. Agile is suited for such evolving projects. And then you have got projects where everything around you is shifting constantly, like the ground beneath your feet is always moving, so you gotta be super flexible, because what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow. For such projects also, agile works really well. Right. So there are professional bodies promoting and educating on Agile method. The most accepted three organizations are Agile Alliance, Scrum Alliance, and the Scrum Foundation. Agile Alliance is a non-profit global community dedicated to advancing the agile principles and practices for software development. They offer on site and virtual conferences, articles, blogs, research papers, and access to international user groups and webinars and all that to uh, promote the agile methodology. And then we have Scrum Alliance. It's also a non-profit organization for Scrum professionals, and it's committed to advancing knowledge and understanding of Scrum methodology, because those who follow the agile process, uh, they follow the Scrum methodology, because it's Scrum is following the agile practices. Scrum Alliance, they also provide certifications, so the professional courses and all that. And then we have the Scrum Foundation. It provides certified Scrum training and consulting around the world. Their website offers resources for new and experienced Scrum Masters, as well as access to certifications and ongoing learning opportunities. Just know that there are these organizations for Agile uh, management, the professional organizations. These are the three main famous international organizations worldwide. Uh, This was not in your spec, but I just thought just having this slide won't do any harm. Agile projects should attempt to conform with the Agile Manifesto, but what this may not always possible. You will not be required to list the values or principles in the examination. You will not asked to remember these and write down in the examination. The four Agile software development values in the Agile Manifesto are: number one, individuals and interactions over processors and tools, and then work in software over comprehensive documentation, and then customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. If you can really see, this is like uh, they are taking the drawbacks in the waterfall method, and they are promoting why what we should focus. It's like individuals and interactions over processes and tools, where and also work in software over comprehensive documentation. In Agile, after each iteration, we released a working part of the product, whereas in waterfall, they are more focused on having a comprehensive documentation. So these are the four things in the Agile Manifesto that sort of provide the guidance on what their focus should be given on Agile. Agile is not a single methodology like waterfall, but is a collection of many innovative methodologies that embrace the core values in the Agile Manifesto. Some of them are Scrum, Kanban, extreme programming, uh, feature driven development, also called as FDD, and then rational unified process called as RUP. So it's a agile is like one big umbrella, and under that you have these methodologies: Scrum, Crystal, Kanban, FDD, extreme programming, joint application development, rational unified process. So some of these methodologies are uh, highly prescriptive and detailed, exactly what needs to be done by whom, while some other methodologies are just guidelines, while the project team is at liberty to adapt the method to a project situation. Depending on the project that they are working on, they have the liberty to adapt and change. For an example, Scrum is a very prescriptive agile methodology that specify what exactly the team needs to do at what point. In Scrum, an iteration is also called as a sprint. The project manager's role is known as a Scrum Master. They also have certifications to certify different Scrum roles through the Scrum Alliance that I mentioned before. Now that we have gone through the waterfall method video and today on agile method video, let's see the differences between waterfall method and the agile method. I have done a separate lesson, as I mentioned, for waterfall methodology. You can click the link to view that video. Uh, Due to the limitations of waterfall, the agile methodology came into practice. In waterfall, the teams are isolated into phases, stages. The key communication instrument between the teams is the documents that are handed off from one team to another, like the SRS, software requirement specification. For it's done by the business analyst team, and in the requirement phase, and then they get the sign off from the customer, and they hand it over to the design team. So that is sort of the only communication that's happening in the waterfall method. That means the teams work in silos in each phase, that leads to misunderstanding, and ultimately it could cause a project failure as well. Agile, on the other hand, foster a culture of collective teamwork and collaborations, always uses a cross functional team. In every phase of agile approach, developers and architects are also encouraged to sit in the client meetings where the requirements are discussed with the BAs, so they also can challenge and question and ask from a developer perspective and architect perspective, so the BAs can uh, get better requirements, detailed requirements, and there won't be ambiguity and misunderstanding because the entire project team is in the same loop. Uh, so it helps to get a developer system with good quality. Waterfall has rigid phases and one cannot deviate from them even if you find an issue in a previous stage. But Agile allows flexibility, and since only a small part of the software goes through the phases, in an iteration if there are issues they will be caught sooner than later and corrective actions can be taken soon. Waterfall doesn't allow customer to see a working software till the end of the project. Therefore there's no way to verify what the developers are building is what the client really wants. On the other hand, in Agile, a working software, a part of the software is always released and demoed to the client at each iteration. Since an iteration can be anywhere between 1 week to 4 weeks, the client see a new part of the working system in 4 weeks, the latest. This is useful to rectify any issues with client feedback or any misunderstanding of the requirements as well as adjusting the requirements to meet the customer needs. So this ultimately resulting in a perfect system that customers want. Finally, the waterfall method has very limited room for scope changes. The scope is decided and somewhat carved in the stone once the requirement phase is completed and the software requirement specification, the SR is signed off. So it's really limited. Therefore, any changes will result in revisiting the whole requirements, redesigning the system, and changing lot of system parts that is already coded. So this will be very costly in terms of double effort and time taken. Agile, on the other hand, allows lots of room for changes at the end of each iteration. Since requirements are not completely analyzed and since the whole system is not built at one go, customers can constantly review the working releases that they get after each iteration. They can give their feedback, they can request changes to scope or improvements to already built parts and accommodating those scope changes at a zero or low cost, since if those are related to a part that is not already built. Okay, so those are some of the changes, the difference between the waterfall method from the agile approach. Right. So finally, as I mentioned, this just after the waterfall methodology video as well. What you all need to remember is that whether we use agile, whether we use waterfall as the project management methodology, whatever we use, the end goal of any project is the same, that is to achieve a crystal clear project execution with minimal cost, minimum time, and best of quality while meeting the customer requirements correctly. So that is the end goal, whatever the methodology that we're using. So depending on our project and the scope and the complexity and the size and the type of the requirement and the type of the domain of the project and all that, due to many reasons we can select whether we are going to do which methodology. So that's the end of the agile methodology lesson, and there's one more lesson remaining for to cover the chapter 15. So with that we are concluding the lesson today. Thank you.